Well, good day and welcome to it is July the 27th. I hope you are having a wonderful day wherever you happen to be. My name is Gary Willing. I want to welcome you to Search for Signs. And I always like to point out, if you want to start investigating this information for yourself, however you want to do that, I have included links to websites that I think really give good background information about what we talk about. So when you start to investigate this, you can see if there's anything to it for yourself. So hopefully you'll take advantage of it, you'll look into it, that kind of thing. Now, I also want to do something that I have started doing relatively recently. I should have been doing this all along, and that is thanking people who have taken the time to comment, because it does add to the discussion about what we're talking about most of the time. David Neck, thank you. And even though you said I was dumber than the preacher who brainwashed me, I thank you for your comment. Now, your comment kind of reminds me, I've been really finding these hilarious, but there are these reels on YouTube that you can go to and watch where celebrities read mean tweets about themselves. It's quite hysterical. So anyway, yes, I'm dumber than the preacher who brainwashed me because I believe that Christ has already returned. But thank you very much, David, for the comment nonetheless. Cynthia Jaworski was a lot nicer than David was, and I want to thank you in the same way as well. Rick M., thank you as always. Nick Younger, appreciate both comments. Ricardo, thank you so much as well. And then Rhonda Stolp, I appreciate your comments. And if you want to join the discussion, you can always join the discussion by posting your comment or asking a question and posting your comment or your question in the comments section. So hopefully you'll look into it. Now, I do want to eventually read an article from Benjamin Creme's master entitled The Pairs of Opposites. Now, I want to set it up like this. First of all, the title, The Pair of Opposites. If you listen to these videos at all, you know I talk about the sort of cleavage quite a bit. It's the divisions that we're seeing in the world, in politics and social spheres, economically, between countries, between religious groups, between the religious and the scientific. I mean, there's divisions everywhere in thinking. Now, Maitreya says that it's absolutely crucial that we go through this stage, this divisive stage, because it's going to lead humanity to the correct choice to either share the resources of the world, bring about justice, and bring about peace, which he says is the only way that's going to give us a future as a humanity, or we will die together. That's the choice. And it's going to take us seeing things in a very divisive way in order to make that decision and make the correct one. Now, this article that Benjamin Creme's master is talking about is not talking about that per se. He's talking about the return back to the source that each soul makes, the sojourn that each soul makes from when we started out as early animal man to the point where we will eventually become a perfected member of humanity like these masters. Now, I talk about Maitreya, I talk about the masters in every single video, but one thing that I do not do very often is go back and re-explain really what a master is, what they mean for humanity, that they're here in that way. But the masters of wisdom are perfected members of humanity. There's not very many of them. And I would say there's probably maybe a few handful of perfected members of humanity that make up the kingdom directly above us. Now, scientists would tell you that there are 4 kingdoms on this planet. The mineral kingdom, out of the mineral kingdom becomes the plant kingdom, out of the plant kingdom goes the animal kingdom, out of the animal kingdom comes us. And then there's nothing else. Just like physicality, right? The scientists would say there's really only solid, liquid, and gas, and there's no other level of physicality. Well, that's partly true up until the point where they say there's no other kingdoms above humanity and there's no other level of physicality. There's actually 4 levels of physicality above gas called the etheric, which has already been proven by a scientist named Wilhelm Reich over 100 years ago. But what's yet to be proven is there is a kingdom of souls above humanity known as the kingdom of souls, kingdom of heaven if you're a Christian, the masters of wisdom, the kingdom of God, the lords of compassion, the spiritual hierarchy, and as I like to say, the masters of wisdom. So when I refer to the masters of wisdom, I'm talking about perfected members of our humanity that have chosen to stay here and help us in that way. Now, there was a time, eons ago, that this group of perfected members of humanity were out open in the world. Everyone knew who they were. They taught humanity directly. They worked with humanity. They gave humanity a very much of an advanced technology at the time, far more advanced than what we have today. But there was a crisis that happened about 100,000 years ago, and since then, they retreated away from humanity, so to speak, and really removed themselves from dealing with humanity directly. Now, it didn't mean that they forgot about us. It didn't mean that they ignored us. They still worked with humanity, but they had to do it indirectly through their disciples in the world. But the information about the masters for eons upon eons upon eons was totally forgotten about by humanity and lost, really. And it wasn't until, I think, 1875 when Helena Blavatsky brought the knowledge and the truth about the masters back to the public eye through her work that she started. And since then, there's been others like Alice Bailey, Helena Roerich, and of course, Benjamin Creme is the man who I usually refer to when it comes to this information. But more and more information about these masters will come out as they become more and more engaged with humanity in a direct way. Now, Maitreya is the first to come before the public eye, not claiming to be a master, not claiming to be a great spiritual avatar or even a great teacher at any level, just presenting himself as an ordinary person speaking on TV about the problems of humanity. But eventually we will start to look to him more and more and more. He'll start to galvanize and inspire humanity for change and that kind of thing. But what is a master? A master is someone who is perfecting their divinity perfectly, moment to moment. And they have already perfected it, I guess is a better way of saying it. So we're in the process of perfecting our divinity. Some of us, it might just be a little glimpse here or there. Others of us might be more and more. But the process takes eons upon eons upon eons, thousands upon thousands of lifetimes in order to get to the point where we are actually perfecting our divinity and then eventually perfect it and become a master and move out of the human kingdom into this kingdom of above humanity called the kingdom of souls. And this process goes on ad infinitum, and there's another kingdom above it, and another kingdom above it, and then from what the masters are saying, there's an infinite number of kingdoms above humanity that we will eventually discover as we all go together along the path of ultimate return. But the immediate part of the discussion is the next kingdom available to us, which is the spiritual kingdom. Now, this article, I think, explains better than anything that I've ever read about the path of return. But there's been parables in the Bible about this. When Jesus spoke about the prodigal son, most Christians would view that as the sinner realizes his sinning ways, asks God for forgiveness, and comes back to God's good graces kind of thing, right? The truth of that parable was not the sinner, it's the process that the soul takes from when it started incarnating on this planet to eventually becoming a perfected master and manifesting the soul perfectly. So these masters, again, I've said it before in videos before, are not masters over any one of us. They are masters over their own nature. They've truly mastered what it means to be divine. That's why we call them a master. So this article was written by one of these masters, and eventually his name will be known once Maitreya is out known in the world, but right now we just know him as Ben's master. Wrote several of these articles that were published in Share International on a monthly basis for decades. Quite extraordinary material. I always encourage people to look at it for yourself and read it for yourself, because there's a lot to what he has to say in these articles about a lot of different subjects. But he's talking about the spiritual return back to home, really. Our soul's journey back home, really, is what it amounts to. So what did he have to say? Since man first emerged on earth, his history has been one of conflict and strife, aggression and war. Seldom has there been a time when these tendencies have not been uppermost, until it would seem that they represent the essential nature of man. Yet, despite all evidence to the contrary, this is emphatically not the case. Why then does man present such a distorted image of himself? From whence comes this capacity for chaotic action and destructive violence? Man is essentially a soul a perfect reflection of God. Through countless incarnations over untold ages, man's soul seeks to express its divine nature in time and space, creating for itself a physical counterpart. The soul endows that with the means of evolution to its own perfection. Thus does the plan of God work out. The key to this development is aspiration. Indwelling in all men is the desire for perfection and the urge to express the good, the beautiful, and the true, the attributes of the soul. No one, however faltering in action, is bereft of this desire for betterment, however expressed. In no one does this longing not exist. How then to account for man's aberrations, his violence and hate? The answer lies in man's unique position, the meeting ground of spirit and matter, and the tensions which their countenance invokes. Man is an immortal soul plunged into matter, subject therefore to the limitations which that matter imposes. His struggle for perfection involves the bringing into total union and resolution of these twin poles of his nature. Through repeated incarnations, the evolutionary process gradually achieves this aim, until the quality and radiation of the matter coincides with that of spirit. The plan is fulfilled, and another Son of God has returned home. For long ages, the dominance of matter precludes a major expression of the soul. Evolution proceeds but slowly. When at long last the opposing poles of his nature are resolved, man realizes that this dichotomy is but seeming, the oppositions unreal. Then he sees that all is one, spirit and matter, but two aspects of one divine, whole the limitations of the past not but illusion. Without the struggle of opposites and the friction which ensues, man's progress would be slow indeed. Friction is the fire which impels him on his way, aspiration the light which calls him ever upwards. Thus does man discard in time the limitations of matter, endowing in it with the radiance of his spiritual truth. Man's task is to spiritualize matter and to bring the substance of the planet in every kingdom into a perfect reflection of the heavenly man whose body it is. Conflict and war, violence and hate are but the passing manifestation of man's inability, as yet, to demonstrate his true nature. The time is fast coming when his truth will prevail, his beauty radiant, and his good demonstrate for all to see. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.